that I remember that I once lived in a community where the traditional ruler wasn't a Muslim, and every Eid period, the Muslims, they go pay him homage. And I had calls to ask some of the Islamic teachers then, and they said it is part of the hadith of the Prophet of Islam that irrespective of where you live, you must also respect authority. So if that truly existed in Islam, how do we marry what is happening today that, some people are not being liked, if we're to go by the news we get in some quarters?
My friend Suleiman, you see, I keep saying it is the mindset. Because we from the Muslim side know that Islam itself will end up notching the 73 different sects of Islamic practice. There is going to be different folds of Islam, Muslim sects, and only one of those 73 is the one that is Islam.
Was it predicted?
No, it's in the Quran. So you see, no matter...
So it's form of like a prediction that there will come a time where we have about 73 sects.
Maybe they already exist. Maybe they are still adding up. But the fact still remains that there is 73 different forms of Islam, out of which only one is of God. The rest people just create, because it's the perception, how you interpret this scripture makes you find yourself aligning to a particular this thing, and then you end up going off the road. So it is your own effort between you and your God to seek that right thing, and once you hit on the right one, that violence gets out of your system. You no longer have the violence, you no longer have harshness, you are always of pious mind, pious deeds.
What is the place of the Sharia law in all of this?
The Sharia law is a way of life. It guides you to live the best way, a best example of a human being passing his time on this earth, because you always advocate peace, you advocate justice, equity. All those things come in when Sharia law is used.
Okay. Now that it's reported actually that Boko Haram or the federal government may enter into some sort of negotiations, and I'm sure you might have come across that. What were your thoughts when you saw it?
Now I'm just hoping that it does not end up like the other stories we get, because they said they are meeting somewhere in Saudi Arabia and all this is going on. But the fact still remains: are we hearing the truth of the matter? Because we have heard these things one time too many. So, I'm optimistic.
Okay, but because I mean, some time ago you spoke about the responsibility of leaders, leaders across both, northern leaders, southern leaders, in coming together and speaking up about this challenge with a view to tackling it.
Yeah.
If I may even get your perspective on this and comment on it, if you will. What kind of damage, if you think they've done any, has the activities of Boko Haram done on the Muslim faith? Even Christians too, because sometimes, you see, because those who may not know that both religion preach peace, they may see this for the first time and go away with that kind of impression. Do you think any damage has been done?
A lot of damage has been done because the gap has widened. That suspicion between one another has increased. But what is called for is for both sides to go and stretch themselves to a point where they will take the script from the other side and get closer to it. Because you find out that the Muslim does not have time, does not have that respect to say, let me see what is in the Bible. The Christian too behaves the same way. But if you could just hold on to the Quran as a Christian and go through it, seeking to know the real thing that moves Muslims. And the Muslim goes through the Bible seeking to find out what makes a Christian. The understanding will suddenly close in on you.
You know, in spite of all of this, when this keeps going on, there's a tendency for us to forget that we're a nation, we're a country. We have laws, we have constitution, which you've got all kinds of things in that law, and we're even seeking to amend it. And so leaders are talking about it. But from what they've talked about now, in terms of how we need to amend the constitution, people are talking about resource control, creation of states. Of course, you also go through all of those, and who knows. But now that you've seen the progression, and then this negotiation, hopefully if you get the correct news out of the way, you think we'll eventually amend those laws and take one step towards development and again national unity?
No, well, I would have to tell you that I wouldn't like to be the president of this country at this moment in time.
Why not?
Because, you see, he has to live and sleep with the fact that Nigeria may end up with him being the last president of the country any moment, depending on what steps he takes. And this country cannot survive amendments. Amendments of the constitution will not take it any further. It's just like playing the ostrich. You just have to sit, face one another with the mind of trying to maintain and sustain and create and make a new Nigeria, not in your mind, at the back of your mind, toying with the fact that once I get to the table, I will make sure I smash that thing called Nigeria.
I mean, people may have glossed over it, that you don't like to be the president at this time because of the challenge that we're facing. It may be the last, and who knows, depending on the way he handles it. But from the way he's going now, you think he could do some things differently? And how would you suggest it?
I wish he could. I don't have that confidence. That's my problem, because he's not doing the things I expect. It's time to call a spade in this matter. Time is against him. Before you say Jack Robinson, you'll find out he's thinking about the election of 2015. And that's a big one. And he will insist, his people will insist, the Niger Deltans, I'm sorry to say, who now think the presidency is a Niger Delta president. Everything Nigerian is at the dictates of the Niger Deltans. The moment you say President Jonathan, they'll tell you, better say the right thing or we break off the country. Better say the right thing or we come after your head. It's not done.
Let's explore that a little bit. So pardon me for buttoning that, because in a democracy, as a president, you may not, in fact, former President Clinton says, sometimes you can't do what you want because of the structure. The way it is structured, you have the National Assembly, and then you have the judiciary, then you have the executive, and so it's a game of numbers. You have to carry a lot of people along, and even if you've got the best of ideas, if numbers say no, if much more numbers say no, what do you do?
For the House, the National Assembly, which consists of elected members, just like Mr. President himself, is one thing. But if everybody has a program, for God's sake, it will work like a well-tuned machine. But the executive level are nominated people by the president himself who are going to surround him to fine-tune whatever it is that comes up. And it's very unfortunate that you see the National Assembly, which seems to be dancing to the tune of the executive, instead of maintaining their own strength that was God given by the people.